Hi everyone, I'm Alex, and today we're going to delve into another true crime story together. Sarah Gonzalez McLean was born on July 9, 1994 in Topeka, Kansas. She was homeschooled during her early years and grew up as a kind and considerate child. Sarah had a younger disabled brother whom she cared for and a close relationship with her older sister. Unfortunately, as a young child, Sarah experienced abuse from a neighbor, which caused her severe trauma. This led to nightmares and anxiety, causing her to run away from home and turn to alcohol. Her parents took her to a psychologist for help, but the situation only worsened as they divorced around the same time. Sarah felt unloved and disconnected from her family, especially her father. She began working at a pizza parlor at the age of 14, owned by a man named Harold Sasko. Despite his appearance as a successful and religious man, rumors among employees suggested he was a pervert who only hired young attractive girls. One of his manager warned new employees to be cautious around Harold. But when Sarah was hired and received this warning from one of his manager, she was still very naive and thought the guy was exaggerating. As she started working at the pizzeria, Harold began to socialize with her and eventually gained her trust. He would pick her up from school, drive her to work, buy her things, and ask her to confide in him, even telling her to think of him as a father figure. However, he also warned her not to tell her mother about their relationship. Sarah obeyed him, and her family remained unaware of what was happening. Alongside her relationship with Harold, who she saw as a father figure, Sarah experienced another traumatic event at the age of 16. A close friend raped her during a vacation, causing her significant physical and emotional harm. This incident triggered past traumas, leading Sarah to seek psychotherapy for post-traumatic stress disorder. The stress and depression became overwhelming, eventually leading her to attempt suicide. Sarah was admitted to a psychiatric hospital for treatment, where she received therapy and medication for rehabilitation. Upon her release, she continued to take medication and see a psychologist, gradually making progress in overcoming her traumatic experiences. However, the stressful atmosphere at home remained a challenge for Sarah to cope with. When the girl was hospitalized, she had already stopped working at Harold's pizza place, but they stayed in touch. He would pick her up from school, take her out to lunch, and inquire about her life. During that time, Harold suggested multiple times that she move in with him. He was single, had no children, no commitments, and lived alone. Additionally, his business was thriving, and he offered to financially support her, even offering to pay for her college tuition. Sarah repeatedly declined, despite wanting to leave home due to daily violent arguments with her mother. However, in 2012, upon graduating high school and turning 17, Sarah accepted Harold's offer and moved in with him. She believed this was the start of a new life, with Harold providing all she needed. Initially, Harold fulfilled his promises, providing for her needs and wants, without asking for anything in return. He showered her with gifts and attention. But everything changed when Sarah turned 18. Harold made an indecent proposal, offering her sexual favors in exchange for his past generosity. Sarah refused, shocked by the sudden turn of events. Throughout their time living together, they had pretended to be stepfather and stepdaughter, to avoid any misconceptions about their relationship. Sarah's mother never approved of her daughter moving in with Harold, but Sarah didn't heed her warnings. Many people close to Harold and Sarah mentioned that she would even call him daddy, so it was quite surprising for her when he asked her for intimacy. When Sarah refused, Harold became very angry and threatened her, implying that without sexual intercourse, she would have no home or anything else. Knowing about Sarah's history of substance abuse starting at a young age, Harold took advantage of this by offering her illegal substances. While under the influence of drugs, he attempted to have sexual intercourse with her and raped her multiple times. Each time she refused, Harold became more aggressive and violent towards her. He even went as far as making a list of items he had bought for her and demanded she repay him before she could leave the house, threatening legal action if she tried to escape. Sarah was financially dependent on him, as her minimum wage job could not cover all his demands. Feeling trapped and manipulated, Sarah was unable to return home to her mother, as Harold had convinced her that she would not be accepted there. This toxic situation caused Sarah's behavior to change drastically, turning her from a kind-hearted girl into an aggressive and defensive person. Sarah's thoughts gradually shifted, leading her to feel a strong desire to kill. She first went to a pet store, purchased rabbits, and upon returning home, she brutally killed, skinned, and consumed them. Harold, who witnessed the gruesome act, remained silent and even laughed at her. When Sarah wasn't at work, she was at Harold's place, constantly under the influence of illegal substances and consumed by a dark mood due to her traumatic experiences. Desperate for relief, she turned to antidepressants, but they proved ineffective. She then tried stronger medications, but they too failed to provide any solace. Sarah found herself trapped in a downward spiral, and it was only a matter of time before tragedy struck. On January 17, 2014, police officers arrived at Harold's home after his absence from work raised concerns among his colleagues. Receiving no response at the door, they peered through the windows and discovered a man's lifeless body in a pool of blood. Breaking into the house, they found empty beer cans scattered around the scene. The medical examiner determined that Harold had succumbed to multiple stab wounds to the neck. Traces of sedatives were found in the beer cans. Sarah's cell phone was found in the house, leading authorities to believe she may have been abducted. The officers later discovered that Sarah had called her workplace and informed them that she would be absent for a few days due to a family member's death. Upon speaking with her family, Sarah's mother mentioned that her daughter had been attempting to reach her grandmother. The police traced the calls back to payphones at different convenience stores and determined that Sarah was traveling from Kansas to Texas. Surveillance footage from these stores confirmed that Sarah was the caller and that she was alone. It became apparent that she was not a victim of kidnapping, but rather the primary suspect in Harold's murder. On January 25, 2014, 11 days after the murder, 19-year-old Sarah was found sleeping in Harold's car by park rangers in Everglade National Park, Florida, around 10:30 p.m. Upon waking her up to arrest her, they discovered she had a loaded gun. A search of the car revealed another gun, illegal substances, an axe, and 2 knives. Sarah was not taken to Kansas at the time of her arrest, but was instead questioned by several investigators in Florida. She cooperated fully and admitted to killing Harold and fleeing the scene. Sarah claimed that Harold had been bullying her, and she saw no other way to get rid of him. She provided a detailed account of the events leading up to the murder. Sarah revealed that she had purchased pills for insomnia a few days before the crime and had slipped them into Harold's beer, causing him to lose consciousness. She then tied him up and stabbed him multiple times in the neck, nearly decapitating him. When the girl discovered that Harold was dead, she used his blood to write the word freedom on the bathroom wall. Sarah then washed her hands, took a shower, changed her clothes, and took money, a tablet, and Harold's car from the house before leaving. She purposely left her cell phone behind to avoid being tracked by the police. The girl drove towards Texas, but found it too cold at night, so she continued on to Florida. Upon arriving in Florida, Sarah visited a local tattoo artist named James Baker to get a new tattoo. This was not her first tattoo, as she already had the phrase "only God can judge me" on her shoulder. For her second tattoo, Sarah chose a quote from a book that read, "Beware the dark pool at the bottom of our hearts. In its icy, black depths dwell strange and twisted creatures. It is not best to disturb." Sarah had hoped that by cooperating with the police and sharing the full story of Harold's abuse, they would understand and reduce her sentence. However, the police portrayed Sarah as a psychopath, and Harold as a kind Catholic man who only wanted to help her. During interrogation, Sarah admitted to feeling the urge to kill during fits of rage at Harold's house. The prosecutors stated that Sarah murdered Harold because she wanted to experience killing a man, not because he was violent towards her. They also discovered a message on Sarah's phone in which Harold apologized for forcing her into sexual intercourse. However, none of this evidence was presented to the jury during the initial trial, and all signs of Harold's abuse towards Sarah were disregarded in order to hold the girl accountable. Sarah's trial began in February 2014. Her lawyer chose not to use the evidence of Harold's abuse against her, as the prosecution did not acknowledge it either. Instead, he opted for a risky strategy, suggesting that Sarah plead not guilty by reason of mental disorder due to her dissociative identity disorder. The defense argued that Sarah had developed multiple personalities to cope with the abuse she endured. However, this defense strategy failed, as neither the judge nor the jury believed their claims. The prosecution put forth a different narrative, focusing on the idea that Sarah killed Harold simply to experience murder. They contended that the sexual relationship, despite being pressured by Harold, was consensual and not part of the violence. Additionally, they asserted that the drugs found at the scene were purchased by Sarah herself, with no concrete evidence to support this claim. The only aspect the prosecution could definitively prove was that Sarah had premeditated Harold's murder. Text messages on her phone revealed plans to eliminate him, leading the prosecution to argue that the crime was deliberate and calculated. Sarah's internet search history revealed that she had spent a month researching ways to target a person's weaknesses, particularly focusing on the vulnerabilities of the neck. On September 4, 2015, Sarah was convicted of first-degree premeditated murder and given a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 50 years. The media publicized the case after details emerged about Harold's abuse and witnesses that were not presented in court. It was discovered that crucial information about Sarah and Harold's relationship was withheld from the jury, possibly to protect Harold's reputation or to secure a harsher sentence for Sarah. In 2021, Sarah reached a plea deal with the prosecutor, resulting in her sentence being reduced to 25 years. Although she is still serving a life sentence, she will be eligible for parole after serving 25 years. Thank you for watching, everyone. What do you think of today's story? Write your opinion about this case. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to stay updated on new stories from around the world. See you soon. Take care.